Okay, today's a real fun one. I'm going to cover routines, flows, sequences, combinations. Doesn't matter what you call it. It's basically putting multiple skills together or multiple movements together. Or I think of it as like playing with what you have. Now, often you'll see this in like routines. So gymnasts will do this in routines. You could do it like a yoga flow. Calisthenic type competitions will have this type of thing where they combine multiple movements together. Now, I recommend it's something that you all do at the end of your own training, or even make specific training sessions where you combine different elements together. And you can start doing this really early on in your training. So today I'm going to go through some ideas on the different ways you can split it, combine it, and think about how you plan out these routines. So an example would be I could be in a flexibility position, like a straddle position. I could push up, which would be mobility. I could come into a crow position, which would be balance. I could push up, which would be strength, into another balance position, which is the handstand. Come down, eccentric press, more strength, into forward fold, again, flexibility. So a good way of thinking about this is to brainstorm your flexibility, mobility options, your strength, and your balance. Now, this is going to be a little bit different for everyone, but so an example is that one I just done. So everyone has a straddle pancake position. So that could be straddle pancake. In that movement, I used two different strength movements. So I used a press from the crow to handstand, so like a handstand push-up. And I done an eccentric press. So for me, I can do a press, so I'll put down press. Balance, we had the crow and the handstand when I went up into handstand. And then I finished in that forward fold position. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to populate this with lots of different ideas. And don't just think about the hardest variations of skills. Think about all the options that you possibly have. Because when you're putting things together in a routine, you don't want to necessarily go from your 1 rep max to your 1 rep max to 1 rep max. That means your routine would last like 20 seconds because you'd be too tired. So you want things that you can go between like easier options and harder options, harder skills against easier skills. So write down everything you have, and mine looks like this. I've just quickly jotted down some ideas for myself. So I've got straddle pancake, forward fold, splits, front and side splits, bridge or hollow back position, squat as in flexibility, so just like a resting squat position, down dog, handstand flags. Strength, I've got handstand push-ups, presses, planches, front levers, 90-degree handstand push-up, dead press, pike press, muscle up, skin the cat, chin, dip, push-up, squat, lunge. Balance, crow, handstand, heel pull, toe pull, straddle handstand, tuck handstand, any other shapes, crow, forearm stand, one arm handstand, air baby, QDR, peacock. Now you might not have so many options, but think outside the box as well, because you've got things like normal push-ups, you've got things like crow variations, arm balances, you've got heel pulls, toe pulls. They're all things that you can count as a balance and you can combine into a sequence. So a good example would be for like a beginner, you could go with a crow, to a down dog, to a kick up, to a heel pull, to a resting squat. These movements could obviously be progressions or regressions of the movement. So a handstand push-up could be an eccentric handstand push-up. It could be a pike press. It could be a push-up. Now, the other way to think about it is how do you combine them? What order did you put them in? So you could go with a flexibility, so a flex plus a strength plus a balance. So a forward fold to a handstand push-up to a handstand hold. Or you could go flex plus a flex plus a balance. So you could go from a down dog to a middle split to a crow. Or you could have three the same. So you could have a strength movement to a strength movement to a strength movement. So like an easy one to explain would be like a ring routine. So most of the things on the rings are quite strength based, but you could go muscle up, dip, skin the cat. Now a skin the cat's an interesting one because that could be called a strength movement, but it could also be called a flexibility movement. Now I often use these and I've got lots of examples on my Instagram. So like yesterday's one was a kick to one arm, so balance. I went to full position on the right hand side. Then I went over to the left hand side, again balance. I then lowered to a strength movement towards a full planche. I transitioned over to a croc, so another balance movement. Croc on the other side, so again balance. Then a handstand push-up, strength. Hollow back, strength, stroke, flexibility. Then I actually lowered down and finished into the crow position, so into another balance position, but obviously the lower down would be a strength component. So that's more than 3 in a row, and you could obviously do less. You could combine 2 movements. So here's one on my Aspen coaching page. So I've got a front lever to a muscle up, to a bent arm planche, to a forward roll, to an L sit, to a back lever, lowering down to press handstand, so coming off the rings, into a handstand, and then into a bent arm planche at the bottom. So a big combination there again, using different elements. So not just using floor-based exercises, but also doing the rings as well. You could combine bar work, you could combine floor work, and everything in between. Now remember, with this one, you're not just training the skills. With this one, you're training the transitions as well. So it's a real good assessment. You might find some gaps in your training. And it will also strengthen things like the window of balance. So the room for error will increase. And you'll find that you won't be falling out of the position so much. So I'll be really interested to know what combinations you guys use. Have a play. Let me know if you have any questions. Stick them down in the comments. Thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll speak to you next time. Thanks, guys.